Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been a real pleasure to read your book, and are you ready for some conversation?
I'm ready.
So, I wanted to ask you if there is a moment that you actually feel that you are living the American dream. Do you say to yourself, oh my God, that dream they're talking about, that you can come from poverty, invest $900 in a business, 36 years later, sell it for $3 billion, invest hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in good philanthropy. This is me? Do you say that to yourself?
Yes.
When was the first time you said to yourself, yes, this is me?
Well, you're asking a serious question, so I should give you a serious answer. I'm not sure there was a first time. It just happens. One of the things that was instrumental in whoever it is I am and my brothers, and I had a sister, became is luck. We were born in a house to parents whose values were the best of, I'm going to say Western civilization, but just the basics. And I've told this to some of you. I never can recall hearing my mother lecture about being a good person and so on and so forth. It was how she lived her life. It was how she defined herself. And I never knew it. It's getting to be a long answer. For years, we grew up in a wonderful home. We were in a low economic strata, but we weren't poor. The word poor never was in our vocabulary. But we knew we didn't have any money.
I just want to say that we're seeing the picture that you chose to talk about when you opened the book, talking about your mother in that store. And I think we can see you in the picture also.
Oh, yeah. That's me on the steps. There were times when I know my parents couldn't pay the rent. This is going to be a long story. There are times when we had absolutely zero cash in the house. And I'll tell you just two things. Believe it or not, my mother on our street, we lived on a street in Cleveland, Ohio, that had people in the same economic strata and were mixed Jewish and non-Jewish. And most of the non-Jewish people were immigrants or children of immigrants. And probably all were in the same economic situation, roughly. My mother, Rose Mandel, was the go-to person on our street. And I'm going to say 6 or 8 times a year. It doesn't sound like a lot, but over time it's a lot. People would come to her and say, Mrs. Mandel, my daughter's getting married. This is during the Great Depression in the 30s. So the numbers I'm going to give you sound low, but they weren't low then. Mrs. Mandel, my daughter's getting married. I need to buy a new dress. Could you loan me $20? And what my mother said every time, at the time I took it in, but I wasn't as conscious of it as I was many years later. What my mother said every time was, no, Mrs. Gishmarnowitz, take it. You'll find a way to pay me back. And so
and this is when you didn't have money to pay the rent? And did it ever occur to you when you heard her saying, Mom, what are you doing? I mean, we don't have money for school or for...
We never said that, but I'll tell you what I figured out. I finally figured out, where did my mother get this money? She didn't buy herself a new pair of shoes. She didn't buy herself a new dress. And those lessons were so deeply inculcated in us that we started, I'm going to use the word generous, we started being generous when we just had enough money to pay our bills and we had a few dollars in the bank, not when we were more or less wealthy. I was 26, 27 years old, and my brothers and I were giving money away. Not much, but giving money away. So that's the long answer.
You know, when I hear you now, I can understand, I think, why education is so important and so dear to you. And it is a lesson for all the mothers and the fathers in the audience. But I want to ask you, you did grow up in not having whatever you wanted, that would be to say the least, I guess. Because I think we can't really understand what it meant to grow up in the 30s in the States in that condition. Back then, when you were, I don't know, 16, 18, growing up, a teenager, was making money ever an object? You said, I want to have as much as I want and even more?
No, I don't think we thought in that large a scale. I went to work, as my two brothers did before me, when I was 13 years old. I was selling newspapers on the corner. I was selling in a baseball field where they played baseball. I was selling hot dogs, popcorn, peanuts. And I would come home and give my mother the few dollars I made, actually much less than a few dollars, maybe $1.50, which doesn't sound like a lot of money. But, 5, 6 shekels doesn't sound like a lot of money. But then it was a lot of money. And I figured out another thing. I'm answering all the questions you haven't asked me yet.
I'll find more questions, don't worry.
My brothers did the same thing. What it did for us, I think, what it did for us at that age, to go home and give my mother money that she needed to run the house. Not buy toys and not buy chewing gum and so on and so forth. So I've had all these forces at work, my brothers and I, because we're pretty much alike. I've had all these forces at work for years, and it turns out I'm fulfilling my dream by sharing our wealth with others in an effort to turn out, well, you can see there, well, not that slide, but essentially what the Mandel Foundation does. You know that because many of you are graduates. Essentially what we do is invest in people that we think can change the world for the better. That's the way we are changing the world. And you know what? It's been a tremendous success, if I have to say so myself. So thank you, all of you.
If this is your way to say, let's stop the interview, I have 15 more minutes, and I'm not going to give up all these wonderful stories. But I just thinking of a question, tell me if it's too personal. How far down your journey did your mother get to see?
My mother, I'm glad to say, got to see us when we were rich. What is rich? I'll use a number which is not a real number. We had maybe $20,000 in the bank. A family that couldn't pay the rent. My brothers and I were rolling in wealth to us. When you have no bills and you have cash in the bank, I mean, how do you define wealth? And we started our foundation, if you can believe it. Our business was very small, becoming more successful. We started our foundation in 1953. I've been
13 years after you started your business. Only 13 years.
13 years, and we had World War II, and I was in World War II, and that kind of interrupted our business. Because we had this extra money, and we just knew it was just in our bones. We knew what we should do with it, so we started being, I'm going to say philanthropists.
That's great, but it's not the first time I'm going to say that you don't play by the rules, because most of the people dream of having enough resources so they can stop working. And it doesn't seem to work in your case. I mean, you could have stopped working long ago, and it doesn't even cross your mind that this is what people dream of. You just keep on working. Why?
Well, because I'm fulfilling my dream. My dream is mine.
But you could have said, I'll do just philanthropy, or I'll just do things that I really care about. But you keep on doing business also.
I like the game. I like both games. I like the business game. I think some of you know, maybe many of you know, that we have Israel Equity Limited, a successful business, for-profit venture. And some of you are on our staff.
But I want to tell you, you make it sound so easy, okay? So you say all you need is an A-class players, create a great working environment, treat people with respect, execute well, serve your customers. Now, if you look around, it's far from simple, because most of us are reading books about it, not writing the books about it. So what's the secret? Because it's not simple at all.
I'm not sure I can answer that question, really. I will say one of the things that was in that slide film. Execution, superior execution, is very noticeable. That is, when you go into a restaurant, or you go into a store, or you go into a doctor's office, or wherever you go, most of the time it's okay, but you're not dazzled. You say, oh my God, they treated me so wonderfully. I'm going to leave names out, but I bought a car that was not made in the United States for the first time a few years ago. And that particular car dealer had reorganized and redefined customer service. And I've been just a very strong pusher in my own business life of superior customer service. We made, my brothers and I each ended up being a billionaire, not because we were so smart, but because we pushed the lever that impressed our companies the most, our customers the most. And in our business, in the industry we were in, it was superior service. It was their knowing, there's some examples in my book, it was their knowing, because we sold replacement parts to fix up equipment. If their machine broke down on a weekend, if their plant's production line stopped, we would, quote, kill ourselves for them. And we did. And there are many examples, a few of them are in my book. And we got this reputation. If you want to depend on someone, depend on Mandel. And I would say that's partly is our looks, but that made us. That deep commitment to how do we convince customers you can depend on us, we'll always be there for you, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and we were. Now, that's not an answer to your question, Donna. That's not a brilliant concept. It's just where we were different, not from everybody, you can probably all think of examples, is we had this deep commitment to how our customers would be impressed. We knew they wouldn't be impressed to shave a shekel or two. That wouldn't impress them. They like it, but that wouldn't impress them. We found a way to impress our customers. That was to be very much over the top on service. So that was it.
But to kill yourself for a customer has a price. It's always to put your customer before your needs. It's always to put your customer, often before your family, before what you think you want to do. And this generation, Generation X is called, is Y generation. They don't want to do that. They want to balance. They want to have it all. They want to have a good job and they want to live their life. What do you tell them?
I don't tell them, and I don't talk to them.
So they shouldn't read the book?
No. I don't have. You may think so, Donna. I do not have a monopoly on wisdom. I just know what works in an environment where I'm in control. And what the next generation, the problems, probably I was a next generation to some older person at one time, and they were wondering, what's this crazy kid doing? That's probably typical. I don't really have a good answer for that.
And did you feel that you paid a price for killing yourself for a customer?
Did I feel we paid a price?
Personally, family, hobbies,
I don't think
leisure,
so.
whatever.
I don't think so. I may have. I mean, life is a series of trade-offs. Frankly, I have, I'm going to say it, I have 3 wonderful kids. My wife and I, February 28th, that's a few days ago, we're married 65 years. She'll be here later this coming week to visit President Menachem Ben Sasson. She's very active at Hebrew University. She loves being active. And she loves me. So
I want to touch briefly on it's all about who. And you talk about A players. Now, how long does it take you these days to look at someone and to know this guy or this woman is an A player?
I don't have a pat, answer for that. One size does not fit all, but I'll tell you how long it takes me when I interview somebody to think this is an A player. Not to conclude, but just to think. 2 minutes.
You give him 2 minutes.
2 minutes. No, that's not scientific. But I know right away, I have a hunch right away. Right away.
Is it appearance?
It's appearance. I'm not talking beauty versus non-beauty, handsome versus non-handsome. It's just how they sit, how they talk. You're doing okay. Don't worry about it. You're okay. And then I'll spend the rest of an hour, say, in an interview, trying to verify my first impression. Most of the time, I don't know what the number is, 8 out of 10. My first impression is my last impression.
It seems to me that you are not an easy boss.
Well, the president of our foundation is sitting right there. Where is Moshe Wexler? He's our managing director of IEL. Oh, did he leave? Oh, there he is. You ask him. Don't ask me.
Is
you
it
better
easy
be careful
boss?
of your answer.
No, I'll tell you why. Because a lot of your insight in the book, again, for profit and non-profit, is the structure, is the discipline. Is it to have it, one might say, the way that you want it, and that's the way it should go? And because you've been successful in that, how did you feel when you took your discipline, structure, and bring it to Israel, where everything here is a big mess? And if you improvise, you succeed, and if you go by structures, you don't do it the Israeli way.
Yeah.
Did you manage to make aliyah to your system?
Aliyah to our system, I see. Well, first of all, everything is not a big mess in Israel, in case you didn't know.
Being a startup nation, we talk about, innovation, and let's improvise, and everything will be all right.
I got it. I have your question.
I want to make sure that I didn't say Israel.
So let me say this. I'll start with the foundation because that's older. That started in 1990, so this is about 24 years later. Some of you were in the early class. I'm proud to say I'm proud of you. This is just a chance for me to say publicly how proud I am to be the Mandel in the Mandel Leadership Institute. I would say that for some of our leadership in the Mandel Foundation, starting with that before I get to Israel Equity Limited, it was different, no doubt. But I will tell you that our batting average on hiring A's, frankly, if I have to say so myself, is spectacular. And A's get it. A's sometimes don't want to do something, but they understand why. And if you understand why, you can live with it. So there's more structure, probably, because of me and some of the people I've promoted. So I've naturally been inclined to go with people who are more comfortable with process, with protocols, with the best way. And those people were probably more likely to get picked for jobs. So our foundations had a series of presidents who understood this and accepted it either happily or because they felt they should, and they liked what we were doing. Our current president is a university. I rescued President Yehuda Reinhardt. He was a university president for 16 years, and he still looks pretty good. So, you still got time. It was just like that. It was just not a strain at all. Moshe Wexler is an engineer. He's an MBA. He's a professional manager. I think sometimes he thinks I'm a little crazy, but no, it's not been a challenge. It's been I shouldn't say it's not been a challenge. It has not been a serious challenge for me.
And we still have, if you take the right players and you teach them, it works. But I was amazed to find out, I thought that would be your answer, that actually your procedures and your systematic way of making decisions saved you from Madoff.
You want me to tell the Madoff story?
Do you want to hear the story?
Well, it's not that long. For probably what we have after my brothers sold our business and had all this wealth, what were we going to do with it? So we formed a private trust company, and we built a team that manages our wealth. I'm the CEO of that effort. There was an investment advisor in America named Bernard Madoff. How many of you have heard the name? Oh, okay. So I guess it's all over the world. Who was a member of the Palm Beach Country Club, and I am a member of the Palm Beach Country Club. And a lot of the members of the Palm Beach Country Club invested with Madoff. Number two, our firm uses a group of consultants who meet with us every couple months and talk about principal and investments and I don't know what. And some of them were invested, very highly, very professional, I'm going to say Wall Street types, people who were professional investors, bankers, whatever. And they were personally invested, encouraging me to meet this particular gentleman. And number two, we have, because of the questions you've heard about protocol and structure, we have rules, we have principles about the kind of investments we're willing to make. So I'm going to say there are 10, it's something like 10. One of them was, don't invest where you don't understand what they're doing. That was one of our principles. Now, I have been selling in this company to our staff, there's a lot of A's on that staff, the notion that we are a principled organization and that we can change principles if we want to improve them, change them, rewrite them, but not violate the principles. So I've been selling that for years. And what happened was I finally agreed to meet Madoff. He came over to my house. He spent an hour and a half with us. And he was dazzling. He handled himself well in every way. I'll just leave it at that. I was very impressed with him. I was very impressed with his record. He had some big jobs on the New York Stock Exchange where he was an unpaid chairman of this committee or that committee. And he was very good, very intelligent, very, to me, high quality. So during the conversation I said, but there's one thing I don't understand. I don't understand what you do. How do you do what you do? He said, oh, Mr. Mandel, he said, I can't tell you that. That's my trade secret. If it gets out, everybody will copy me. So I said, okay, he left. And the following week, I was back in my office, and this was in Florida, and I went back to my office, which was in Cleveland, Ohio, and I met with our staff, and they asked me what I thought, and I said, he's dazzling. But I'm going to make what is probably a wrong decision. I think it's the wrong thing to do. I'm going to turn him down. Mort, why are you going to turn him down? Because he wouldn't tell me. One of our principles is we have to understand how this gentleman is going to manage our money. He wouldn't tell me. And honestly, I had a sick feeling. I knew it was wrong, but I turned him down. We turned him down because follow me is the leadership principle. There's a lot of IDF people in the room. And if they don't say follow me, if they say you go take that hill, and I'm going to be back here making notes, I'm not a military expert, but I think that's a problem. So if I broke our principles, why should anybody not? So we turned him down. And honestly, the timing of this couldn't have been better. About 3 weeks later, it broke. And the news was out. And in the eyes of our staff, I was a real hero.
Say no more, as they say. Just the rest is in the book. But I want to touch before I conclude, about lighting a candle. which is your way of talking about your philanthropy work. And you make a point of saying that the most important thing for you is leading a meaningful life. What does it mean for everyone? What should we take from that phrase, leading a meaningful life?
Yeah. Well, that's quite a question. So let me approach it maybe from more than one direction, because I think this is probably the most important thing I'm going to share with you. It doesn't have to be right, but it's how I feel. So I've come to redefine success in the last X years, probably the last 10 or 15. I'm 92. So I was pretty old before I kind of got this. So I'll give you it in shorthand. I define success as looking in the mirror and seeing someone that looks like you, that you know is you, and you're proud to be that person. You know everything about that person. You know all the secrets about that person's life. You know the things that person has done, the things that person hasn't done, why he or she has done what they've done. So I'm making this quite a story. But I think we're all on a journey, and I think success is when you get to a certain age and you look back on that life and say, I'm proud of that life. I would do that life over again. Maybe there are some little things you wouldn't, but it's not how much money is in it. I've got a lot of money in the bank. I can do anything I want financially. I thought, my God, whoa, isn't that heaven? It's not heaven. It ain't bad, as they say. But what's success? So success is nearing the end of your journey and feeling good about who you are and what kind of son you've been, what kind of partner you've been, what kind of parent you've been, what kind of employer you've been, what you've done with your life, what you've done with your wealth. I like what I've done with my life, and I like what we're doing with our wealth. That's success to me. So,
let me share with you one of the most interesting sentences I found in the book, and I can pick up from your sentence, and he writes it, Mr. Mandel writes in his book, I do not intend to retire. So many more candles to light. The torch is in my hand. I intend to hold it as high as I can for as long as I can. So thank you so much for this conversation.